Welcome to Women Empower Active, an initiative started by UR Sportswear to empower women to find their own active adventure. I'm your host, Jacqueline Gross. Today we are interviewing Kriste Peoples, pronouns she, her. Kriste is also an advocate for women empowerment and non-binary folks, and she works for several organizations that do just that. She also loves trail running and is a trail running coach, as well as a meditation instructor. It's been such an honor to speak with Kriste. I am not going to soon forget this interview. I hope you enjoy. How did you become active? Were you inspired by someone, or was that important to your family growing up?
Um, I think active is relative, right? Because I grew up in Virginia Beach and I grew up in a time when it was like okay to run and play and be outside and come back when the streetlights come on, and it was okay to run off with my friends and climb trees and jump fences and that kind of stuff. And to do so without the fear of, you know, being abducted or going missing or having something terrible happen. And from there, that energy was just funneled right into running track, playing field hockey, joining running clubs, and just doing a lot of that kind of stuff throughout the years. And then if there was a cause that was coming around, like run for the cure, snowshoe for the cure. I even did a rollerblade for the cure, and that kind of stuff, like charity events and any opportunity to sort of move. I was there doing it. And all of it just felt like I won't say undisciplined, but it was just a wide variety of activity. And then when I came to Colorado in 2009, I kind of made my way around a few different states and living a few different places around the country. And I got here and I thought I was active. I've done marathons and overnight relays and I've rollerbladed for the cure. And then I see people like leaping and bounding all around the mountains and just scaling the rock faces and doing all sorts of stuff. And it's all I can do to catch my breath, coming from relatively flat land and, getting winded at the top of the stairs in my apartment, not talking about the stairs at the adventure park or what we have out here, the incline, which is a mile high stack of very steep stairs. It was just overwhelming for me. And I thought, oh, well, am I sick? Is this how it ends? Because I can't breathe in Colorado. I had never experienced that before. And so then I met someone who was a women's running coach. And I said, listen, I want to get back to it. I don't know how because I can't breathe and I'm feeling depressed because I'm at a remove from the activity and joy of movement that I've become so accustomed to. And so with her, I started to run again. A lot of it was about just like regaining motivation. And so I started going out with her and we worked together for a while and became friends. And then I actually started to lead with a few outdoor groups, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, so that's sort of the story of being active, which is one that is just enduring. It's just part of who I am, right? I feel like the movement beyond everything else, even though, as you probably assume, like trail running is like at the top,
Yeah.
But there's so much else, dancing and walking and swimming and moving the body is just such a gift.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I pour all of that into being active.
Yeah. Yeah. And trail running is I I really love it. I have like my trail running shirt on today in honor of you. But even around here, because I live in Washington, it's not a very diverse sport.
Mm.
Um, did that feel like, as a Black woman, did that feel intimidating to join?
You know what? Yes. And I would say that I um I started I just kind of literally like tiptoed into the mountains by way of hiking with a friend, like the only other person I really knew here in Colorado when I arrived. And I loved it. I loved hiking and I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to do it all the time, but I felt like, oh, I can't just call this one friend to come out with me. And so I started going out, more and more by myself and learning like what was safe, what felt good to do. And then I started to notice, especially being by myself, that there weren't many people who looked like me. There certainly weren't many women who looked like me. And I felt it pretty difficult to really tap into a sense of community and belonging in Colorado, not having known anyone or having gone to or had a base here, like having gone to college or anything like that. And so I started reaching out to other women through various groups. And as I mentioned before, starting to find different organizations to lead with. And I started with Black Girls Run, which was a road running group. And so its mission was to help fight the statistics of obesity, hypertension, depression, and all that stuff, and to really get Black women moving. And so I was a coach with them for a while, and it was great having a sense of community and belonging with these Black women, and also when we met in the parks, just all the people who would see us running in groups, it felt like an extension of that community, because there were more people who maybe didn't look like us, but they recognized us coming out each week. And so it felt like, okay, it's safer to be out here. There is a sense of community. And by safe, I mean like, if not physically, like psychologically feel safer, and then outdoor Afro leading hikes, going into the mountains, teaching people how to be safe, sharing my love of nature. And as I was hiking more and more, I said, I can see more of this if I move a little faster. And so I started trail running. That kind of became because I was back into like running on the roads, and it felt like okay. And then I started trail running and realized I need to learn how to do this because I'm falling. I'm like feeling a little like tuckered out after a few hundred yards. I'm thirsty. I'm hot. I'm getting lost. And so I found a trail running group. And well, actually, even before I found the trail running group, I went to a trail running clinic because I wanted to get information. And I was hand wringing for a long time before I actually signed up for it because I was like, is this really for everybody? Because they've got all these, fancy European mountain trekkers coming in to teach at this local running store. And Colorado has a lot of that. We have a lot of professional athletes who train here because of the altitude and the just stunningness.
Mhm.
And so I call the place and I say, hey, is this actually for everybody or is it for elite people? What's happening? And so they're like, yeah, it's for everybody. Come on out. You can be a beginner and. And so I go to the place. I have to like really amp myself up because people who run on the trail that I was noticing at first all seemed to look the same. They were paper thin and they were paper white and they were fast. And I was none of those things. And so that was another part of why I felt trepidation at going to this clinic with these professional European athletes coming to talk about the way of the trail. And so when I showed up after all of that, like pumping myself up, I was the only Black one. And I just felt like, oh God, I don't, I can't ask, I don't know how to ask questions because I don't know what I don't know. Nobody's really talking to me. And I came alone. And how am I going to make it through this? Because it just feels like I am definitely out of place here. I do not belong. And it was all I could do to keep from bursting into tears. And sure enough, I thought, oh, I'm definitely going to be the slowest one. I'm going to be whatever. And I wasn't the slowest one. It wasn't awful. I learned some things. And it's from that experience that, in addition to some of the others that I mentioned, that it really became a passion of mine to share the trail and my love of the outdoors with other women of color, with other women who simply wanted to have a sense of adventure on the trail, who wanted to get involved in trail running but didn't know how to do it or felt as intimidated or clueless as I did. Because in the trail running community, it seems as though from the outside, it seems as though, and to me, from where I sit, it seems as though it's a niche sport, like very particular, because trail running, you don't see it so much as you'd see road runners. You see road running all the time because it's out in public on the roads. Trails, a lot of times, are, secluded or like back from the street. You don't always see trail runners. And so when you do see trail runners, a lot of the time in advertisements, there are these soaring images, again, of the paper thin, paper white people running solo and with barely anything on, and they're just clipping along at this incredibly fast pace. And there's the the drone that is hovering about across this majestic scene. And it's like, well, I just want to do a 5K or something nearby. Like, apparently that's not trail running because that really soaring, majestic thing is trail running. So there are all these different perceptions that really stack up as barriers to entry, right? Like, if they're real barriers that say, you can't do it, or if they're imagined that say, you can't do it, it's still the same thing. It's a barrier because it means you're not going to get out there and run. And so, one thing that I'm very aware of is that visibility matters. Somebody who sees me out there who is not paper thin or not paper wide or not breaking the sound barrier, it looks like it stands as, if not an invitation, maybe a sense of recognition. Hey, I'm out here too. Or hey, I can do it too. Or look at her. So why not me? Even if it's not trail running, if it's something else, I want to go skiing. She's out here on the mountain. I can do it too. And so I think we all can more or less relate to seeing somebody do something in a field that's very different from our own, that still draws out in us that sense of inspiration to try something new, or to lean into that comfort, or lean out of that comfort zone a little bit, where the so-called magic happens.
How has like getting into trail running shaped how you coach? Because you're a coach.
It's So I tell people like I'm not going to get you to the Olympics. I'm not that coach. And I'm also not going to probably not going to get you off the couch necessarily. But I am the one like if you are there and you've like shown up with a desire to do it and a desire to try, I'm that one who keeps reminding you of your power that you might not even know you have. And I'm also the one who is going to share best practices, staying safe on the trail, feeling good in your body, and learning how to lean into the challenge of it, right? How to cultivate mental toughness and resilience, and also a sense of joy. Now, I'm also a mindfulness and meditation teacher. So I kind of sprinkle into all of that gratitude and awareness. Let's pause a minute and look around. Let's take a picture. Let's notice what's happening in your body, and when you stop, ask yourself, why are you stopping? Are you tired? I mean, aside from coming to the end of the run, but are you truly there's tired, there's fatigue, there's also giving up, right? Like, oh, I'm tired. I gotta walk. Do you really have to walk? Now, I can't tell you, I'm not you, so I can't tell you if you're not really tired, but I can say maybe investigate that a little bit. Because are you really tired? If you've only run a certain number of miles and you're trying to build endurance on the trail in particular, as we know, not all miles are created equal. Somebody asked me, how fast do you run? What's your pace? And I'm like, well, it could be 7 minutes a mile, it could be 70 minutes a mile. It depends. Like put pace out out to pasture right now. When you're with me, we are going to run at the pace of us. We are going to really look at building that longevity and feeling what's going on and understanding the mechanics and understanding our surroundings and how to run safely. And those pieces, when it's like a holistic approach to the way that I coach and the inspiration and the cultivating the inner resources to keep you going. There's mindset, there's how you speak to yourself, there's how you speak to your body, how you listen and engage, like knowing more about like when to push, when to pull back, when to let it go. And so I keep that at the forefront of how I coach and what I offer when I'm coaching, because again of that experience of those early days getting involved, because it's really overwhelming. Like I had a friend come to visit me from out of town, and she'd never really gone hiking. Like her thing growing up was going to their family's beach home in the summers, and hanging out, fishing, and being in the water, that whole thing. And so when she came here, she said, well, how do you find the trail? Like, where do you go? How do you do that? How did you find out? And at that time, I had been hiking for a while and like leading groups and stuff like that. And it just brought me back into that moment of when I was asking the same questions. And now, like you and I, we can roll out of bed and be ready for the trail in a minute or two, if we have to like fill a bladder or something or empty a bladder. And but it made me like really appreciate the fact that what, we all start from somewhere. So in my coaching, I love working with, again, like beginner intermediate women who are just getting started and wanting to extend. Um, so in my coaching, I'm reminding people like, hey, here's where the trail is, here's what to look for. This is some of the gear that we want to use when we're on the trail. Here are best practices for staying safe. So I'm like going back and like breaking down all that stuff that we know, right? So, or that we have come to learn over time, where I can get ready in a couple of minutes and be at the trail very quickly. Somebody else might be like, what shoes do I need? What trail do I go to? How am I supposed to dress? And what do I do with this handheld water bottle? Like, and I am there saying, here's gear that you can use that will help you carry your water on your body as opposed to holding it by hand. This trail is good because it has this kind of grade or this kind of terrain. So there are a lot of elements that go into that inform how I coach based on my own experience, also based on the experiences of the women who are coming to me, because it's easy to say, okay, if you want to race, it's easy to assume that everybody wants to race. Not everybody wants to race. I don't really race. But the thing is, like, how can we nourish that desire to be on the trail? That's like that's my sweet spot. And how can I encourage that person to really understand or embrace a fair amount of pain or build their pain tolerance in a way that feels uh, purposeful.
When I first started trail running, I had two people. They were had been ultra runners for a very long time, and they kind of, because I ran track and cross country, so I have been running for a while. Come from Michigan, very flat there,
Mm-hmm.
and so like they were the ones who kind of showed me, you should eat, you should drink, and kind of made. I was like always worried about the time that I was running, how
Mm-hmm.
slow I was going, just because people have that concept, like you had said earlier, that, you have to run fast and all of that stuff. But what I always say now is that trail is the great equalizer, because
Yes.
we're all running the same pace and it does not matter. Like it will just all just level everybody out together. Kind of want to skip around here because we were talking about meditation, because you're also a meditation coach. And I have been really struggling with being consistent with meditation. How do you stay so consistent as somebody who has a certain mileage that I like to hit a week, and I can be consistent in other areas and set goals? Like, how do you keep yourself so consistent with meditation?
By exploring what works for you. So some people think of meditation as sitting, pretzel legged on the floor in complete silence, and that's it. Not moving, not, and doing that for at least a half an hour or something. It's this idea that's ingrained. Then you got to be calm all the time. And this is about becoming peaceful and all this stuff. And I would say that's one way. And that's not the only way. Now, of course, there's formal sitting, which is a practice of stillness, sitting in silence, not necessarily pretzel legged, because not every body is built the same, right? And it's important to realize that meditation is not always peaceful. It can be a torture, just like running. Some days it's a torture, some days it is blissful. but it's a practice, right? Like we keep coming back to the trail for those miles. There's something about getting our miles that means a lot to us. And the same thing with sitting in meditation. It's the cultivation of the practice that strengthens the muscle, if you will, of awareness and presence. So there's also a variety of other ways to meditate or to be meditative. So I would say if the premise of meditation is to still the mind and to come into a deeper sense of the self or to meet the self in a more um, full way, then being still can mean, I'm rushing out the door. I'll give you an example. I'm rushing out the door and I got my mug in one hand and my tote bag in the other hand and my keys and my books and my in all the other hands.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, not my keys, because I was like looking for my keys. I'm like, oh my God, I'm already late and I gotta find my keys. And now and you know how you can get spun up into this like anxiety and pressure and tension even before you leave the house. And that's what I found myself doing. I'm like, okay, I've already lost because I'm just spun up and I'm not really aware of like what I'm doing right now. Just stop. And I said out loud, Kriste, just stop. And so I paused and I just like rested my hands on the kitchen counter and I just breathed for like 5 seconds. And that's all I did, just breathe. And that was a tremendous way to call myself back to myself, to call myself out of all of that frenzy and tension and back into what matters. What matters, you ask? The moment, the presence, the being with self, right? So if I'm like, oh God, all these things, I'm not really with myself. I'm like my energy, my attention is diffuse, it's scattered. I am nowhere. And so in that moment, when I'm all out there, I have less wherewithal to meet what's right in front of me. And so meditation or the practice of stilling the mind can look like just like that. I'm just going to right here. I can be in the grocery store. I can be in the post office. Oh, God, in the post office. Just like because our lines, I don't know about you, but our lines are crazy in the post office.
Mhm.
And there's only like one, whatever. I'm not going to go there. But but the thing is like coming back to the self, you can do it anywhere in traffic, breathing and really feeling yourself breathe. And when you're taking a walk, even running, mindfulness is the act and meditation. They're two different things, but they go hand in hand, right? Really being aware of what your body's doing, feeling the breeze on your skin, the air coming in through your nostrils, your heartbeat, your cadence. It used to be before COVID hit, I used to love washing the dishes by hand because it was so meditative. It was a way for me to kind of still the mind by doing this gently repetitive motion like that didn't require me to like think so much about it and the water on my hands. I was just present with the dishes, so much so that I had a friend visit me once. And after she left, it took me like weeks to find like where's my bowl? Where are the bowls? Where my plate? Where the plate that I love? Where'd that go? She had put it in the dishwasher. And I was like, oh, right.
People do that.
People do, oh, yeah. Like I was not, that's how much I was not using the dishwasher.
Mhm.
And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden I've got dishes stacked up because I'm cooking for myself all the time, when we were on lockdown. And I'm like, this is not meditative for me anymore. I am using the dishwasher now. And so that's just an example of, our practices will shift, right? So washing the dishes by hand is not meditative for me anymore, is not soothing and comforting, and does not bring me back home to myself and pull me out of busyness in the way that it used to. And now it makes me a little overwhelmed, especially if I have a lot of dishes that I can't quite get to in a moment. And so there's an invitation in anything that we do to really do that thing and be with it, So if you're, for some people, there's cooking or sewing or, you know, being with their house plants, any number of things, whatever speaks to you in a way that helps you really get still inside, whether or not you're moving physically outside, whatever helps call your attention back in to that larger sense of you and to stillness, that's a great way to practice. And then also, if you want to do a cultivate a formal meditation practice of sitting, formal sitting, start with a minute as often as you can, a minute a few times a week. Meanwhile, doing a lot of taking advantage of the other moments to do things throughout the day. So it's like if the full on sitting practice that people most often think about as meditation practice, if that's like the one big thing that you want to get to, it's equally important to do a lot of little things too, like what I was mentioning, so a lot of little things can be as good as the one big thing. The with the end goal, if there is a goal, actually there is not a goal of meditation. It's a practice. It's not a perfect, it's a practice, right? Habituating ourselves to being still in the body, being still within the body and in the mind can come in many forms. And so I would say to anybody who is looking to start a practice of meditation in any form, to notice where those moments naturally are. Oh, wow, I didn't realize I felt so calm when I'm doing this particular thing. And like, try a little bit more of that and really be with it. Like, oh, wow, there's this thing. Or like when I'm, doodling. Doodling is a friend of mine sent me markers and card and heavy cardstock. And I was in a Zoom meeting once, and all right, more than once.
I know, right?
And I just started like doodling and listening and to the and because I've heard people say like doodling, people think I'm not paying attention, but I'm really engaging more because I'm giving all the chatter something somewhere to go. It's stilling the mind so I can be more receptive to the present moment. And so in that moment, I just started doodling, and it just really felt like this is a beautiful practice, a beautiful moment. And so I left the doodle there. When I went back to my next Zoom meeting, I pulled out the doodling, and it's not an everyday practice, but I noticed this has a calming effect on me. and I'm gonna come back to it, and I'm gonna just play with it. I don't have to make it into some big ritual thing, but I know that when I go to it, this might happen, and I'm curious about it. And that's another way to like step into a practice of meditation without, oh God, I can't meditate. I'm terrible at it. I don't have the time to like sit down and light a candle for an hour. It doesn't have to be that at all. In fact, I recommend that it's not that when you start, but just go towards something that really calls to you and be with it and see what happens. And because meditation is largely about noticing, not doing, but being with the self, with the moment, with the experience.
Yeah. I love that noticing thing. As you were talking, I was thinking about that, like how it applies to me. There was times when I would go to acupuncture, and for some reason it was very calming to, like, it was run by like a husband and wife, and I could just hear them talking while I was getting my acupuncture, and you're just laying there obviously for like 20
Mm-hmm.
minutes under something warm, and that would be a very calming experience for me. I mean, obviously can't go there every week, but I'm like thinking about that, and so I feel that was meditative. And then another thing is like when I just started biking again, like
Mm-hmm.
having a bike, not like I'm a serious biker, but just doing it for just an enjoyable thing to do. And
Mm-hmm.
that's another time where I feel very relaxed. Like it's a very calming, like I don't have any goals. I'm not trying to do a thing. I'm just like do just go from one place to another slowly, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's
That's it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, I can see that. And then because I am very goal oriented, is there any way to like set goals for yourself when you're trying to meditate as part of your week?
There is ooh, a book I was reading about atomic habits. And the idea is that you tack on the habit or practice that you want to grow or cultivate, you tack it on to something that you're already doing, right? So let's say you brush your teeth every day, every morning. If you want to meditate, maybe before you brush your teeth, you give yourself 5 minutes to like do some meditation, or 1 minute to
Hmm.
have meditation before you brush your teeth. Or you brush your teeth, and then right after that you go and sit down for a minute and meditate. And then maybe you have your breakfast or your tea or whatever. So like, or put it in somewhere that's like already in your routine. So if it's brush your teeth and have tea in the middle, you sit for a while. Or maybe while you're having tea, instead of having tea and going through your phone, maybe you have tea in silent kind of reflection, without your phone anywhere nearby, and just pause and, sit by the window and then go to your phone. So a way to like kind of bookend this new thing that you want to do to set goals or to practice meditate. If meditation, practicing meditation is a goal, bookend it between things that are already actively up and running as habits in your daily life. And that's a way to like insert it. And there's more certainty or more likelihood that you'll do this new thing too, until it becomes its own habit. And I find that something like that to be very effective.
That's great advice. I literally have been trying to do that with mobility and like stretching. So I like have
Mhm.
been putting that like more mobility stuff into my core exercises because I do core exercises, but like haven't been doing mobility stuff. So that I
Mhm.
can totally do that. That's definitely seems manageable.
Mm-hmm.
Getting excited.
Yay.
Yay. Solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to talk about you're part of like so many great organizations. Do you mind talking about those a little bit?
Sure. So I'm on the board of Running Start. Running Start is a nonprofit organization that's Colorado based. And we help women whose fitness journeys have been interrupted by hardship, maybe drugs and alcohol, loss of employment, family issues, trauma, prison, whatever. And what we do is we provide the women with a motivator who helps them with their training plan. It's a 5K, it's a couch to 5K training plan, and it culminates in a 5K run that we all attend. The board, the motivators, the runners, their family, the runners' families, we all show up and cheer them on at this race. And it starts in the spring where we pair the runners. We call them beginners because everybody's like beginning their running journey or resuming their running journey. But we pair the beginner with a motivator. And the motivator is somebody who is an active runner who maybe has some experience coaching or not, but has a passion for like supporting people on their fitness journey and also can consistently partner with this person to help them along their way. And that might mean phone calls, text messages, walking together, running together, doing the race together. Whatever the two decide, they figure it out and literally move through the weeks together.
Mm-hmm.
And we have sponsors who provide sports bras, shoes, and everything from head to toe that the women would need. And so I'm very excited about that. And it was founded by Nicole DeBoom, who started Skirt Sports, launched as a nonprofit, uh, Running Start. So that's one of the organizations that I'm really proud to be part of. I'm also a self defense trainer and personal safety trainer at Impact Personal Safety of Colorado.
Wow.
And at Impact, what I love about Impact is that we not only teach physical self defense, but we also teach self defense in terms of uh, honoring our boundaries and setting healthy boundaries for those moments or for those exchanges where people are trying to violate our boundaries. And more often than not, that kind of violation happens from people who are familiar to us or from people who we love or who we think who love us. And the thing about being able to defend and protect our boundaries is that it gives us more of a sense of agency. And it also says clearly to other people, I care about myself enough to let you know when you are stepping over the line and I need you to step back. And so this is, interestingly enough, part of the training that can be the hardest because we do simulations of you telling your partner that you feel this way when they do a certain thing and here's what I need from you, and being able to hold that boundary when someone is saying, oh, you're being overly emotional, you don't mean it, be nice to so and so, but you're not being yourself, do this, do that, and so really turning the tide and shifting the dynamic of those kinds of power differentials, if you will, is huge and is an act of self advocacy. And so when we're able to do that, we're able to hold ourselves with more confidence in the ways that we show up in the rest of our lives. And it also means that that transmits to people who might seek to do us harm. If I'm feeling beaten down by life and just kind of, you know, self defeated, then the person who is looking to do me harm or to take advantage of me is probably going to see that as an opportunity, right? Because I'm not aware of my surroundings necessarily. I am not feeling or appearing necessarily confident in my energy. But if I am at home in myself and I feel relatively confident in the way I'm carrying myself, to someone who is looking to take advantage of others or to cause harm, I am probably not the first person that person would assume they could do harm to, because I'm aware, I am present, I am looking around, I know how to use my voice and advocate for my boundaries. So again, there's a theme here, a lot of little steps we can take to empower ourselves, right? As opposed to, I need to do this one big thing. Like I need to like be able to flip this person and take away a gun and do all this like high karate stuff. And now, granted, there is actual fighting involved and very serious techniques that we teach in terms of the physical fighting. And yet there are, dozens of things we can do before we ever have to use any of that stuff. And this is the hard stuff, which is showing up saying, hey, I matter. You can't do this to me anymore. Like, ooh, I gotta tell my mother that. But it's my mother, but it's my you know. So I love impact personal safety for that. I am also program director at Women's Wilderness, which is an organization, also a nonprofit uh, that is mission driven to provide outdoor education and adventure for women, girls, non-binary folks in the realm of, oh gosh, rock climbing, hiking, camping, backpacking, all things outdoors. And so through these various activities, we cultivate community, we inspire, again, self direction, self confidence, deeper communication skills, all that sort of thing. And one of the many things I love about Women's Wilderness is that we also provide opportunities for women and girls and non-binary folks who are largely underserved and underrepresented in the outdoors. So we provide lots of scholarships, lots of opportunities to connect those communities and the people we serve, to connect them with um, opportunities and experiences to really get out and taste nature in a very deep and meaningful way. Um, I'm also on, I'll say one more.
You're fine. You got the floor.
Oh boy. So I am a coach for Life's Too Short Fitness, and that is a local group. And although we are starting to, in the spring, we are assembling online courses for women who want to get out on the trails. And so we primarily focus on beginner and intermediate women who, or intermediate trail runners who are women. And the reason for that is women who are highly experienced or elite runners, they've been trail running for a while. And so they've already pretty much got their established communities. but women who are starting out and want to cultivate a healthy habit and a love of trail running are often looking for community and ways to sustain this new experience by going out with other people who are in the same boat. And so we teach again personal safety, best practices, how to how to run well and strong. And so we also have oh gosh, mountain biking or mountain bike coaches and trainers, and we do winter retreats. We do snowshoeing and stand-up paddle boarding, and so it's just grown into an outdoor kind of adventure experience for women who are in that zone of like looking for community, looking for um, activities that are year round, because we run year round as well. So those are some of the things, and I notice the theme is largely about supporting women for sure, and meeting women where they are to help them um really redefine their sense of adventure, or redefine or to define what adventure means to them, and to also shift the narrative of wellness and like who gets to be outside.
You're just such a positive person, and I'm hearing a lot of things. You're dealing with a lot of adversity in as far as like the groups that you're in. Like, how do you maintain such a positive outlook?
Because because how? Well, because I mean the trail, right? Like the trail is medicine. Like going out there, you go to the trail, and I go with maybe sometimes a sense of like burden or overwhelm, and through community and just one foot in front of the other, whew, that really does it for me a lot of the time. And sometimes, you know, when it feels like, so I'll give you an example. Um, Ahmaud Arbery, the Black man who was running in Georgia and was gunned down, murdered in the street. This happened during COVID. Um, what was it? The safer at home. It wasn't quite, it was like semi quarantine. And here in Colorado, it was safer at home. So you could go out, but not more than 12 miles from where you live. And so, did you have that also?
Like, no, no.
Okay, so this was like a sort of phased approach to full on engagement again. And so some of the trails were, well, where I was living at the time, the mountain trails were more than 12 miles away. And so, as a good steward of the land, and trying to like, as a leader and setting an example, I said, okay, I am going to run the roads then. And so at the time, I'm running the roads, and I'm like, well, where exactly do I run? Because I'm thinking of Ahmaud Arbery. And that's really got me shaken um, pretty hard. And Breonna Taylor, who was murdered in her sleep. And there was another man who was sitting on his couch and got murdered by a police officer who broke into his home to shoot him. And so around this time, and there were other things that were happening too, but around this time, I said, it is, well, and sometimes generally, I feel, well, it's dangerous to be in this Black body, period. Whether I'm at home minding my business, whether I'm asleep or running down the road. So what do I do if I can't be safe in my home, if I can't be safe on the street, if I can't be safe in my body? Well, I have to be somewhere. And so I and so running down the street, because I said I can't not do anything. So I chose to keep running, and I was running down the street and I'd like see a white woman. At the time I lived in a very affluent neighborhood that was white, and I saw a woman with a stroller going down the street, and I'm like, well, I got to get off the sidewalk, because if I'm running toward this white lady, I might make her nervous. She might be afraid of me, quite possibly. And then if she expresses her fear, then I might not make it home. Like, it's that real. And so, and even worse, if I run up from behind her on the sidewalk. And so then I said, okay, I'm going into the street. Well, I can't run on the driver's side of the street, or the where the car doors, because people might assume that I'm trying to break into their cars, and they might not like the sight of me running through their neighborhood, and somebody might call the police. So maybe I need to run on the other side of the street by the passenger door, because there's nobody in the street on that side, and I'm not on the sidewalk running up on somebody who is white. That might be my best chance of running safely through this neighborhood. Not too fast, but at the right pace, and not staring into any of the homes. Mm-hmm. And so, and that kind of experience is real, and understanding that, and understanding what it means to look like I look, to be in this body, and to be moving this body on the trails or on the road or showing up anywhere. I know what that means for a lot of people. For some people, it could very well mean, I'm nervous. Let me reach for my pocketbook. But for some people, it means, she's out here. She is doing it. I can do it too. I can at least try a new thing. She looks like me. Maybe that means there's an opportunity for me too. And so that matters to me a whole lot more than this other stuff. And another saving grace has been that, my running community, my trail community has been a huge support. Interestingly enough, most of them are not Black, they are white. And you know how it is with running friends who you don't even see them all the time. You aren't necessarily bosom buddies, but there's an intimacy and a trust with running friends they are rock solid, and they literally go the distance with you. And so being able to share those kinds of struggles with my running community, and seeing how while they didn't understand largely what I was experiencing, they showed up to support. There was the I Run with Maud, the run that was 2.23 miles, I believe, or 2.23 miles, I believe, in honor of his life, because that was a very significant date, and I believe it was a date that he was killed. And so they ran to support that moment, and to support me, and to show some solidarity. And those kinds of things reinforce or bolster my confidence in community. And it encourages me. And having the understanding of what it means to show up is sometimes and is a lot of times an act of courage, and sheer will. And so the joy that I find in being in nature really inspires a deep sense of gratitude that I can do this, that I can show up, that I can move, that I can understand my history and the power just of the power of being, just being, period, being on this earth. So, rather than go real deep into it, our bodies are miraculous, right? The things that our bodies can do, we don't even know the limits of our bodies. And being able to move in this body in this particular time, in America, it's amazing. And I also realized that somebody dreamed me into being, right? Like generations ago, my ancestors, my grandmother dreamed that, that her descendants would be able to move freely in the world. And when I move freely in the world, I know that I'm not doing so alone. I know that I am her dream and a lot of people's dream who came before me. And so it's huge. And that's all of that surpasses and dwarfs the adversity, and it's not, oh, keep your eyes on the sunny side of the street and, oh, just have a song in your heart or whatever. No, this is like real. It's real out here. It's real. And understanding that I am not going it alone and that I have a very powerful platform that I stand on in terms of knowing who I am and where I come from. None of that other stuff can touch that. And if there's nowhere for me to be safe, then I may as well be wherever I want to be. Right? So, and I'm only wasting my life and my time if I go fearfully. I may as well go as proud and as wholly human as I can. And I also have a very high tolerance for joy. So, yeah.
Oh my God, you're gonna get me. Yo, holding it together. Oh my gosh. Oh God. Okay, sorry. Okay. Wow. I'm getting back on the questions. Okay. What makes you such an advocate for the trail?
We are nature, right? So people say we're a part of nature, like we live near nature, we should go out into nature. But if you break apart our body composition, the same elements that we're made up of can be found in the earth, carbon, all the things. Calcium, nitrogen, oxygen, water, right? We need air, all the elements and all the minerals and all the stuff. I don't know, Google it. But we
Yeah.
so it's not that we live near nature, we are nature. We come from nature. We will return to nature, to the earth. We are the earth right now. And so going to the trail feels like a uh not a coming home necessarily, but a belonging or a place to feel grounded and connected. There's all kind of science on what happens when our feet touch the earth and release the charge and get the charge and all that sort of stuff. Google that too. But it's there is something that happens in the exchange of being on the earth in this way that restores us and that can heal us and that can also reconnect us to places in ourselves or ties that were severed or damaged in the past, right? So in one instance of an excursion I was leading, there we were talking, and it was a group of women of color, and I asked them about their early experiences in the outdoors. And one woman said, it wasn't good because I remember sitting in that truck watching my parents, who were migrant workers, pick fruit and vegetables in the fields, and all the chemicals that, irritated their skin would cause problems for them. And I'm in the truck by myself and it's hot and there's nowhere for me to go. I'm too young to work. I can't drive the car and I'm just stuck watching this. This was not a good experience of being in the outdoors. Another woman said, I love to run, but when I wasn't running during practice, I had to sit in the bleachers under an umbrella because my family said I would be too dark if I just stayed out in the sun without an umbrella. So there are lots of stories like that. And I won't even go back to the times of, you know, lynchings and abductions and other deep violations of the body and spirit that happened on the land. Right now we have the terrible experience of missing and murdered Indigenous women being pulled from the land and separated from their families. And that causes, a deep rift in the on the land, and the associations, they get ruptured. But when we're able to come to the land with a sense of reconnecting and telling our stories and letting go of some of that trauma by bearing witness to it and naming it, that is a way that we can begin to repair and reconnect, right? So when we're not kind of blocking it out or refusing to see the brutality that the land has witnessed or that our relatives have witnessed or experienced or that we ourselves have witnessed. When we can do that bit by bit, it restores us, something deep in us that maybe we can't even name. And beyond that, like being able to just go out to the trails and know that I can move my body in such a way that when I'm done, I will feel complete or re-energized. I mean, even that, it's huge. There's no end to my mind and to my body to the benefit of being in nature. And so a lot of this is, in my coaching, in my maybe day to day, when I don't really share all of this with folks who are just out for a hike or just out for, but it informs the way that I go out. It informs the way that I hold myself on the land, and it informs most definitely the way I engage with people, because I feel a reverence for it, because I know what that connection can do. And I think it matters in whatever way we're able to really touch into that connection that is there for us all.
Yeah, I just wanted to give that a little space. That's beautiful. What you've There's been so many words of empowerment that have gone on in this entire chat, but and powerful words. What we always like to end with words of empowerment for women who are like gonna try new things, or just don't know where to start, or might be questioning themselves. Like, what words of empowerment would you give for those women?
Say yes to yourself. Say, why not me? Say, I have no idea what I'm doing, and keep going anyway. Lean in the direction of your own adventure, whether that's an inner adventure, an outer adventure. Give yourself permission to explore it. You don't have to win. How about this? You're not going to win. And let that be encouragement to know that the stakes don't have to be high. But you can advocate for yourself by giving yourself permission to take one new step, to explore one new interest, and go from there. Because every moment, I mean, it sounds cliche, but every moment is full of opportunity and is precious, and when you think of the constellation of circumstances and synergies and events that made it possible for you to be you, you'll realize that you might just be a miracle. And so anything that you do is gravy. So why not? Why not you? That's what I'd say.
Oh my gosh, almost got me again. Did you have any plugs, anything you want to support, or any way we could support the groups that you're a part of?
Yeah. Womenswilderness.org is, although it's Colorado based, our events are open for anyone who wants to come join us. There are ways to donate. You can go there and see what we're about. And the same goes for Running Start. We are Colorado based, and there are ways to donate and contribute. Like, we have wish lists and all sorts of things like that. And I am an occasional blogger. I'm at kristepeoples.com. And I am also more actively on Instagram. Shoot me a line if you like.
Yes, if anyone's in the area, you'd be an amazing coach. And is there anything that you wanted to say that I didn't ask you?
Trust what your body is telling you and your heart is telling you, not the outs, not the externals. It's so easy and cheap to get overwhelmed by the externals.
Yeah.
You have a wisdom. We have a wisdom that's in us trying to get our attention, and you know, let's give ourselves permission to really listen to that and honor that. So yeah, I really have appreciated this time, and thank you for your grace and letting me meander
Oh
and
my
tell you all these stories. And thank you for coming out, Jacqueline. It's just
Yeah.
been wonderful.
Oh my gosh, no. It's been an honor. I'm so grateful for this. Like you certainly didn't have to do it, and I so much appreciate it. This was so valuable to me. You have no idea. So thank you. Thank you so much for doing that.
And and you didn't have to reach out either. I'm so glad that you did. Yeah.
You can follow me personally. That's at Jacqueline Gross. I mostly take pictures of mountains from far away, but sometimes close up. You can follow UR Sportswear. That's the letter U, the letter R, Sportswear on all social platforms. You can shop for our products at ursportswear.com. If you're listening to this podcast and want to check out any of our videos, you can go to UR Sportswear's YouTube channel, which is, you guessed it, UR Sportswear. This video and audio recording was produced by Jeremy Canaria and edited by me. Thank you so much for listening.